Hello, everyone. Welcome to our kind of mini set review overview for the Shadows of Innistrad Remastered set that's coming out in a few days. Here at the Arena Gauntlet League, we play a sealed format of 60 cards, and we're going to talk about this set with Richard K.
Hey.
and Rafael F.
Hey, hey.
Welcome, guys.
All right.
So, Richard, you had a lot of experience with this set when it was initially released in paper. What were your general impressions of the set back in the day?
Yeah, so this was like kind of at the height of my drafting, I would say. Not that like this set was like a favorite above others, but I was drafting like 4 to 5 times a week in person. This is also when I first downloaded Magic Online and started drafting there. The Shadows Over Innistrad, I think it received a lot of hype because I started in 2014, which was a couple years after the original Innistrad. And Innistrad was like, the original Innistrad was so hyped. And I think this came out and it wasn't that. So maybe it wasn't as well received. And looking back, it was a fine set. Eldritch Moon actually added a lot to it. And I do very fondly remember the Eldritch Moon draft format. So a good set, I would say. Above average, but not in the top tier. But interesting they're bringing it back, so we'll have a lot to talk about.
Excellent. So, one thought, since it is a set that's about 7, maybe 8 years old, a lot has changed in Magic. So, for instance, I started playing back in Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. And it seems that the sets today are pushed.
Yeah.
Mana values are a lot lower. We're coming off of Phyrexia All Will Be One, where it was just a 1 and 2 drop game.
Oh yeah.
So what's the speed of the format going to be like?
Yeah, well, first of all, like you need to get in a time machine and go to 2016 for our card evaluation, and basically, the design was different then. One thing, and we will talk about, was that there was a lot of cards brought from uncommon to common, which sort of represents like a power shift in the set, sort of representing where these cards might slot in if the set came out today. But format was generally slow. Like, if you listen to limited resources, when it comes to the set reviews, they always mention, that we previously just had our expectations adjusted, that 1-drops were bad, and that's not true anymore today. But I think if we go back to this time, the 1-drops are kind of bad. The removal, as we'll get to, is like pretty bad across the board, and it was generally slow. The one exception was in Shadows of Innistrad, there was this werewolves deck that could really, really get people very quickly due to the transform mechanic. But I think it's been tempered. There's not too much of it going on. So I would expect games to go long, particularly in our format where the decks are a little bit more wonky to start off with than a focused draft deck.
So not only did they, when you say tempered, do you mean that because it is a remastered set and they're pulling from Shadows and Eldritch Moon, that there's just fewer werewolves, whereas in Shadows, the red-green would have been full of wolves?
Yeah, there was a lot of wolves they did not print here at common or uncommon. There was quite a few that they decided to not print here, and they printed some of the Eldritch Moon werewolves, which was a completely different mechanic. They transformed, but it was for mana, so it was more like a big mana deck where you wanted to get to 5, 6, 7 mana to flip them, rather than the werewolves deck, which was extremely aggressive.
I see. All right, so I'm a relatively new. What should I be wanting to avoid if I see a card and it looks really good? What should I not play?
Are you talking about cards that look like build arounds, or just cards that are just not good?
Yeah, build around. So like I open a pool and I see a card and it's like, oh, maybe I'll try to build my pool around this.
Yeah, I got to start, and I know if John P. Goku is listening to this, he won't be too happy. But I have to start with Rise from the Tides because that's a card that gets a lot of attention. This looks like a really good build around, but if you look deep into it, it's just like almost everything about this card is just a bit off. Like 6 mana, sorcery, and they're all tapped. And a lot of the instants and sorceries in the set don't affect the board. They're just sort of like, cycling-ish type of cards, like cards that just like replace themselves or like put cards in your graveyard. So I sort of paired that with Pieces of the Puzzle, which was like a card that went in that deck, which is up to uncommon now, strangely. Just like, I'm a more safer and conservative player than most, but like, I don't know. I don't really like these cards. Other cards I would avoid, as far as cards that look like they're trying to do something specific, is any card that looks to be milling your opponent. So I have Fleeting Memories here. Paired, I put that in the same category as Manic Scribe. So they trigger off different things, but they're both milling your opponent consistently. And you don't really want to mill your opponent. Like, there's Delirium. There's a lot of stuff that plays with the graveyard. So, but I think in our format, we have 60 cards, people are less likely to mill, so this is one that can probably easily be avoided. A couple of the other ones I mentioned here, there weren't too many like traps, as I would say. Aside from that, there's Crawling Sensation, which is a green card here. It was also you were milling yourself and you were making insects. There was a card actually very similar, I think, in Vow, that was not that different from this. Like, I think it triggered off creatures being put into the graveyard, like just wasn't played. So, there seems to be like a lot of reasons to want to mill yourself, and maybe there are, but these cards just weren't good. And the other one I picked out here, there was Graph Sensation, or Graph Harvest, sorry. Yeah, this one. Zombies have Menace for 1 mana, and you pay 4 to exile to make a 2/2 Menace. It's just really, really slow. Maybe in the early weeks of League, it's okay, because it's not necessarily a zombie card. It's just you can mill creatures. And the other card I wanted to mention is a downshift from Rare. Don't know why they decided to keep it in the set, but where is it? Brain in a Jar is here somewhere. Let me find it. Brain in a Jar. Yeah, this card just doesn't... This card's just way too slow.
Yeah, it looks terrible. If it was like from the graveyard, it would have been so much better. And then like after I reread it and saw like you can cast it from your hand,
yeah,
it doesn't seem so great anymore.
So like the only reason I could think of that they would want this at uncommon is to have people be able to build around it in draft, right? There's no other reason to do a rarity shift in a set that's only going to be played in limited. So if you're brave, go for it, but I don't see it.
Can you see a world where you might want to like build around Brain in a Jar?
No. I honestly can't. The blue-red spells deck is quite good, but it's more of an aggressive tint. Like look at this gold card. Like, this is what the deck wants to do. You're casting cheap spells and killing with this. It has like ultra prowess, right? Like this is the blue-red archetype, not play a million spells and then make tapped creatures, at least for me.
I mean, I'm in for it. You also have what? Is it the 2 mana target creature gets +1/+1 and double strike in red?
Yeah, it's Uncaged Fury, which actually I want to mention. I wanted to mention in our rarity shifts section, which I'm sure we'll come up to, is that this was actually put up to uncommon because it was so strong. This ended a lot of games. There is a pump spell in red that gives +2/+1 and trample. It's called Rush of Adrenaline for 1 mana. Comboed with that, it could end the game on the spot. So yeah, imagine this with the Geists that we just put up. Like, this was a common and it got put to an uncommon for good reason. This is an effect that should not be at common.
I mean, it's strong. I'll give it that.
Yeah, a couple years later, it got reprinted in a core set at uncommon. Like, it was the same card. It was still Uncaged Fury. Yeah, core set 2020. It actually did get the proper shift up in a few years back. So yeah, that's a card to look out for.
I'm trying to find this card that I had on my radar, because we just came from a set that has Hazardous Black. There's a card in this set. Granted, it doesn't do 1 damage to the board.
Yeah, it's Magmatic Chasm.
What do we think about it?
So this was a staple of the red-green werewolf deck because they just play a bunch of big stuff. They'd transform their creatures and then they'd have like 16 power and just cast it. But I don't think it's what this format's about. This is a more value. This format can go long. It's grindy. Cards like this get a little worse. But with the removal as bad as it is, maybe there might be more board stalls and this could win. But it's not Hazardous Blast. I will say that.
I agree. That extra ping really helps like clear up some little things on the board, like in the current one set, goblins, mites, and a few other X1 creatures.
Yeah, and it does say creatures without flying, so it doesn't actually wipe out all blocking possibilities.
I had in my mind it's a potential sideboard card depending on the matchup. Like if your opponent's not playing any flyers, it's kind of like, we're just noodle slapping back and forth. Then you might side it in and just say, hey, let's just end the game here.
All right.
I know you're saying the format's kind of grindy, though. Outside of, like, Investigate, like, what are other, like, good grindy things we should be looking for value-wise?
Well, like the Delirium decks, but honestly, Delirium kind of isn't the best. Definitely, like, the Madness decks are very value-based because you are getting 2-for-1s all the time. Like, all of these Madness cards, and, like, with the free discard outlets, like, you could just take over the game in a really unassuming way. Like I'll pinpoint this card. This card does not look like if you put this in a random set, this card is not premium. This Olivia's Dragoon, right? 2 mana, 2/2, discard a card. But this is a free, unlimited discard outlet. So you just get to, if you have a bunch of these in your deck, you could play this on turn 2 and you could pass turn 3. Like, you can just cast stuff on your opponent's turn. Like, Madness allows you to cast stuff at instant speed. It allows you to cast creatures and sorceries at instant speed. So, like, you just pass turn 3 and you could have any number of things. And you could just cast them at instant speed. It could be a removal. It could be a creature. It could be this Gisa's Bidding that got downgraded to a common. Like, look at this.
Yeah, Gisa's Bidding looks good. 3 mana for 4 power on board. I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, like the Madness deck, you could get some crazy starts, but also it's just a very, very, very big value deck, which is weird. Usually black-red is not like the value deck that's out-carding people, but in this set, it kind of could be.
Which is funny you say that, because like as long as I've been playing, a lot of the red-blacks decks kind of seem like grindy value. Like you take AFR, you take Neo, you take Bro. A lot of those were like 1-for-1, but maybe you get card draw out of it, or it's expendable creature because it looted or something along those lines.
Yeah, less explosive than this set though. All right, what's next on the on the docket here?
Well, so we talked about some traps. Assuming as happens with me, I don't pull any good rares.
Oh no.
So what should I be hoping to look at? What's going to be some synergistic? Should I be trying to get into one of the mechanics like Madness or Delirium, or should I just be trying to go tribal? Like what archetype should I be looking at?
Yeah, well, we could quickly sort of gloss over some of the archetypes here, and we could look at some of the gold or signposty type cards. Like, so we could start with white-blue since I have this up here. They didn't necessarily have that many gold cards, but like white-blue was a spirits deck, but mechanically it didn't really do anything specific. It was just play flying creatures, and there was some tempo elements, like we were mentioning before, with like Nebelgast Herald being the blue flash creature that can tap things down and make other spirits into tappers. So there's that. White, red, and white, black, I don't think I need to go into too much detail. And there was no really discernible archetype. Like, they weren't as focused back then. You have, like, Ride Down as your red-white instant, which is just a good magic card, but not really telling you to do anything specific. I mean, attack, which is what red-white wants to do. And then you had Anguished Unmaking as this. There was just a downshift from rare, which is just a removal spell. So it's literally telling you nothing. But yeah, red green definitely. It was the werewolf deck in Shadows over Innistrad. In Eldritch Moon, there was nothing really that cared about wolves. It was just more of like a big mana deck. So I'm not sure what it's going to shake out as here. But the most focused deck is the Madness deck. There's just a good amount of payoffs, good amount of enablers, and it's strong across the board. Mechanically, it's doing something. There's cards that care about vampires. There's cards that care about discarding. And there's lots of madness cards. So if you're looking for a
So is
synergistic deck,
is
that
that
would
kind of
be a go-to.
a double archetype where we get a tribal and the mechanic?
Yeah, because you have
Okay.
it's very supported, and a lot of the madness cards, a lot of the vampire madness cards are like vampire adjacent. Like look at this, Stencia Masquerade,
Mhm.
attacking creatures at first strike. Whenever you're a vampire, deals combat damage to a player, put a +1 counter, and this has madness. So it's really like everything all in one here. Yeah, just quickly glossing over it, like blue-black zombies and green-white humans. Again, nothing really mechanically distinct about the decks. Like, just there's a few cards that care about those creature types, but really nothing crazy. Like the blue-black, quote-unquote signpost card was really uninspiring, or not that good. This drew out Corpse Trawler, which gives you 2 zombies, and then you could give zombies Death Touch for 3. But it's like this is kind of like a blocking card, right? Like you could attack opponent with 1/1 and 2/2s and they don't care. It's kind of just you're supposed to sit back and block bigger things, I suppose, since these bodies are really small. So again, like they weren't as great at making really focused two color archetypes as they are now. The one again, blue red spells very focused, black red very focused. The others, kind of here and there. And the other one I'll mention, blue green, which in Shadows it was a investigate deck, so it had ongoing investigation as sort of the trademark card, which was very good. This card was extremely strong. But then in Eldritch it was the Emerge deck, and so there are a lot of Emerge creatures here, but there's not enough to make it like a solid deck where you had like a lot of creatures that got value from dying. And the two decks really have nothing to do with each other as far as the type of things they would want to make themselves work synergistically. So a bit of a weird choice to sort of split blue green here. So I think we're going to be hoping for more like, if we can't get one of those really really synergistic decks, kind of just going for card quality, I think, a lot of the time.
Okay. That said, do you have some favorites for? We could work through each of the colors, but what are some of your favorite cards in white?
Oh yeah, like for commons.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I put a few here, and some of them are just going to be like kind of generic, like Bound by Moonsilver, like just removal spell. This was an uncommon before, so they put this up to common, which is pretty much where it should be. It can't attack, block, or transform, and actually has a kind of a cool ability. You could sack another permanent. You could actually move it onto a different creature. So you put on something in the early game, and then they play like a 5/5 later, and you could actually move it. So really cool card. I also put Dauntless Cathar. So like by today's standards, this looks a little unassuming, but this was really good. 3 mana, 3/2, trades with most things. You get a little flying creature, like really, really good actually. Surprisingly strong. And then the last card I'm going to mention for white probably comes as no surprise to anybody. Based on the kind of things I like to do, which is a 3-bit inspector. I mean, come on.
Which is, I agree, the inspector, but Rich, do we not like Griff's Boon?
Well, Griff's an uncommon, so I was focusing more on commons here, but Griff's Boon was a very cool card. But yeah, 3-bit inspector. Okay. I mean, we've seen it. It's in the cubes on Arena. We know this card is good. It's not just a meme. A white creature that eventually draws a card, like really good. Probably was the top white common in Shadows. And the card you mentioned here, Griff's Boon, I'll mention as an uncommon. Yeah, this card's really good.
Is there any meaningful way to engage in blink or flicker to get?
So no.
Okay.
But they actually downshifted Essence Flux, which was an uncommon in Shadows Over Innistrad, which it's the only real blink card. I guess it's more for spirits to like trigger some of the ETBs and stuff, because it was, spirit could be a tempo deck, but this does work with stuff like 3-bit inspector, obviously. So interesting that they brought this down to common. So showing that this design is now at common rather than uncommon, where it might have been in the past.
That could be pretty disgusting with the Subjugator Angel. I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah. So for blue commons, I think the big one. And I'm scrolling down for a reason because it's in the Eldrazi. this card was all over the place. You always wanted these, which was the Wretched Griff here. This card was incredible. So emerge means basically you could pay 5 and a blue, and then if you sack a creature, you'd get to discount the mana cost of that creature. So if you sack a 3-drop, you're casting this for 3. And there's a lot less good creatures to sack. In Eldritch Moon, they sort of peppered in a bunch of creatures that did something when they died or did something when they came in. Less so now, but this card still stands on its own. Like, draws a card, 3/4 flying. Like, and sometimes you just draw this in the late game and you cast it for 7, and it's completely fine. So that one was good. Other blue cards I'll mention. Another card, I mean, we were talking about this before we started because it was so absurd that this card was a rare, but Imprisoned in the Moon, very, very good card. So basically, this was a rare for flavor reasons in the first set, because it was like the centerpiece of the story, how they were able to, you know, trap Emrakul in the moon so it didn't destroy Innistrad. And also this sort of ability of taking all the abilities away from a creature was actually new at the time, so they put it at rare. But yeah, this is just a really good card. I mean, it does technically ramp your opponent for colorless mana, but I mean, this is just a removal. It stops it being a creature. It no longer has abilities. It doesn't. It's not like Witness Protection where it still is a 1/1 that can attack and block. Like, it effectively just removes it from all relevance.
So
And
since it's a common, do we have any enchantment hate that we should be aware of if we're imprisoned?
yeah, I'll check that in a moment. But the last blue one I want to talk about, and it was pretty close between this and a few. But I do want to shout out this card.
Shout out to Scab.
Yeah, this Ingenious Scab is really strong. Like, the +1/-1, we've seen that ability quite a lot on blue creatures, but when you are playing Prowess, it changes the math completely. Like, if you play a pump spell on this, it's like it's now a 3/4 plus whatever you did, and then you can pump it a bunch more times. So you can get a lot of damage. Like, this can be attacking. You know, if this goes unblocked, this can get in 4 or 5 damage very, very easily with not a lot of mana or effort put in. So big shout out to this card as sort of the last blue card that I wanted to mention. As far as enchantment removal, I know white had sort of a catch-all removal, Angelic Purge, which hits basically everything that you want to in limited. Artifact, creature, enchantment. You do have to sack a permanent. So there's that. You had the blue blink spell, which can reset. I guess it couldn't reset something that's been imprisoned in the moon because it's no longer a creature. And checking for green, what was their naturalize effect here? I know they were in the main set. They might not have put it in here, actually. I looked through it before. Yeah, they actually didn't put a... there was like a naturalize effect in each of the sets, actually. Shadows Over Innistrad, there was one that investigated, I believe. And then there was one in Eldritch Moon where, like, you gain some life or something. They actually didn't put it in. So there is no... there's limited ways to deal with those auras.
All right, that's good news.
Yeah, so for black, commons I had my eye on were... I mean, I wish we had a better version of removal, but I did say Deadweight just as cheap interaction. I kind of wish they would have... They had one in Eldritch Moon called Boon of Emrakul, which was an aura that gave +3/-3. But this is still good. This is still going to be a card you're going to play a lot. The other ones I highlighted, which are cards I already talked about, was Gisa's Bidding, down from uncommon here. Good for its rate, and obviously busted with Madness. And the Olivia's Dragoon. So again, just another card that doesn't look like it's insane, but it's just such an important piece of those black decks. So I did already mention that. So for red, I actually was very unimpressed with their choices of red commons here. The ones I pointed out here, it took me a while to actually figure out what was better than the others. I did say Alchemist Greeting, but this is more kind of like for the Madness deck, where it's extremely strong. As a 5-mana sorcery, deal 4 to a creature, it's, in the range of cards we don't really care that much to play, but with Madness, it's really strong. But I mean, in the early weeks of League, you'll probably still be playing that, even if you're not Madnessing it. Galvanic Bombardment as a nice little creature removal spell that scales up if you have multiple. So first one deals 2, second one deals 3, etc. And really cheap. And I mean, in our format, if we're just opening packs and packs of this set, you could collect quite a few. The other one I mentioned, which was another downgrade from uncommon, is Conduit of Storms. Not that it goes specifically in any deck. This is just like an extremely strong rate for what it does. So 3 mana, 2/3. You could potentially flip it as early as turn 4, and it becomes a 5/4. That can then let you cast bigger things or transform your other Eldrazi cards. So we get our Eldrazi Werewolf here. And let me pull up green here. So for
before we go there, red has a fair amount of removal, right? Actual damage to creatures.
Creature or feats.
Yeah, so there's Alchemist Greeting. There's Fiery Temper, which got put up to uncommon, rightfully so. This was probably the best, probably one of the best commons in Shadows Over Innistrad. This card is extremely strong. What other? There's Incendiary Flow, which also got put at common from uncommon. So it's sort of flip places with Fiery Temper here. So another just your classic.
Right.
Oh, I should have mentioned this over the Alchemist Greeting, because I just had this in my head that it was uncommon. But yeah, this definitely is better than the Alchemist Greeting by a lot, obviously, and it exiles. Lightning Axe as well. So yeah, red got a bunch of ways to interact here.
Question. Removal in relation to creature toughness. As I was looking through this set, it seemed like 4 was the magical number for toughness to get through, or at least, kind of wall up most things. Because even the 4-drops, a few of them have like 3 butts, maybe 2 or 3 attack. And then your 5-drops are typically like the 4/4s or higher.
Yeah, even in green, the creatures are not as big as they could have been in the past. So there was actually a card I was kind of sad to be missing, and it was kind of an unassuming card, but it was called Solitary Hunter. It was just a green 3/4 with a werewolf ability, and it flipped it to a 5/6. It was just a 4 mana like big beefy thing that got out for most removal. We have Thornhide Wolves, 5 mana 4/5. Like, this card was actually fine. So for green uncommons, we're getting I have to mention Rabid Bite. This was actually the first time we got this effect at common, which is now a common effect. Like, rather than fight, you don't fight, you just bite, which is where the term came from, because this was the original one. The other green cards I'll mention is Ovenwald Captive. This is a mana dork. It can't attack, but later on this is exactly what you want your mana dork to be, right? You get some early mana, and then once you have 7, it becomes a monster. Like, it's just a 4/6. So this was a really high pick. And the last green card I'm going to shout out, which I was talking about a little bit before we started, is Hinterland Logger. This card is actually the reason why in Midnight Hunt they did not have any 2-drop werewolves at common, even though the Daybound Nightbound is slightly different from this. This card is such a beating, especially in multiples, 4/2 trample, for 2. So, this is a card to look out for sure if you want to be aggressive. This card can end the game real quick.
It's a raid I definitely like.
Yeah. So
what about Byway Carrier? What are your thoughts about that green card?
I like it. So this is funny. This was actually my most drafted comment on Magic Online while the set was out. I mean, it's a 3 mana 3/2. Nowadays we basically get to draw a card when these things die. Like in Vow, there was a common that had the same stats that just died. It drew a card when it died. But this Investigates, good card. Just solid. Not like a crazy high value card, but perfectly good card. I like it. Mm-hmm. But of course I would like it because it draws a card.
So let's get into the good stuff, Rich. What's our color rankings?
Top 3
colors. I guess less color rankings, more along the lines of what archetypes are you what color combos are you looking to get into? Or you expect to see? Currently right now in the 1 format, it's white, green, white, black, and then a few outliers out there, especially if you haven't completed yet.
Yeah.
For this set, what do we expect to see the most?
I think green-red is going to be strong, even though it's not going to be as busted as it was in Shadows. I think green-red is good. I think black is probably the worst color, but I think paired with red, it's going to be very good. But paired with any of the other colors, I'm not that excited about it. Our black removal here is our catch-all removal is 6 mana at common. Certain Death, like 6 mana. Our other removals at common is -2/-2, and did they even put another one in here? It's
There's a next 13/13, right?
well, it's that's an uncommon though. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's this card. This card you do have to pay a big cost, right?
Yeah, like we literally just had this card in mid or Val, whatever one it was, and like it was still
The ambush.
fine if it wasn't night.
Yeah, I will shout out this card though. This card is very, very good. The Kindly Stranger. You stop to speak to her, and she's all nice, and then she literally kills you once she becomes delirious. So this was a really, really strong one. So as far as the color combos, I think green, red, black, red, blue. I think we're seeing a common a common theme here that red is good.
Red
So
is
another
good.
set in which red is overpowered.
Red got all the pieces here. White is also strong. Just like mechanically, it doesn't like synergistically. It's not like white is doing a specific thing. You do have the human stuff, but I mean, white is just like I look across the card file here. I'm pretty happy with white.
Yeah, I feel like red and white are pretty deep color wise.
Yeah. So yeah, another thing I wanted to just go over. I'm not going to go over every card in detail, but I'll bring it up here is the changes in rarity, because they actually did a lot here. Like this is quite a lot for a set. And like I mentioned before, I think some of the uncommon to common. So I think there's two reasons why they would do this. One is that the power level is not really where uncommons are anymore, but also to maybe push some archetypes and push some things that they want people to be able to do more often. So like Essence Flux, like Gisa's Bidding being a common now. Well, Deranged Whelp is just kind of this should be a common now. But the one that I like is here, this Ravenous Bloodseeker. It's like Olivia's Dragoons, right? It's a free discard outlet. I mean, you could only do it once a turn because it'll die if you do it if you discard a second time. But putting this at common just makes the Madness deck that much better. Narwhal Dryad, also really strong card to boost up to common. 1 mana, 1/1 Death Touch. Late in the game, it can get a bit bigger. Moonlight Hunt, another card. It's exclusively for the wolf deck, but it's an instant speed. It's not even a rabbit bite. It's all of your wolves team up on one thing, and that's a common. So really, really strong. Also Weirding Wood. Like this is a really good effect here. You get to ramp and you get to draw a card. So some cool cards they put to common. Wildfield Scarecrow also, like it gives you half of Delirium on its own, and it fixes you, and it blocks for as long as you need it to. So some interesting shifts here. Like I said, some of the common to uncommon, I'm a bit confused. Like piece of the puzzle. Also, Ironclad Slayers, when I wanted to call out. This card was so strong in Eldritch Moon because there was a black aura, like I mentioned before, that gave +3/-3, and you would get it back with this. But the only removal aura is Deadweight. So I don't know what they saw to put this to an uncommon. Thermal Alchemist, it's already been an uncommon, like in Midnight Hunt, so we're well aware of what this card can do. Probably the one that's most baffling here is Vessel of Nascency. Delirium actually, I think, is quite a bit worse because in Shadows Over Innistrad, you had this cycle of common vessels. Each color got one, and it sacked itself, so it got you Delirium or helped you get Delirium. And this one almost would get Delirium on its own because you would mill an extra 4 cards. And you get to draw one. So I'm not sure why they put this at uncommon. If they want Delirium to work, like this kind of needs to be a common. So bit of a weird one there. Any other comments about any of these?
Yeah, how good do you think the Vessel is? Like I've heard varying comments about the Vessel. It used to be good. It might still be good. It's now it's downshifted. You're going to be able to like do Delirium pretty often. And
this got shifted to uncommon though. From
common. It got shifted up.
Yeah, which is very strange. Huh. Yeah.
Is the card that good?
Yeah, not good enough to be an uncommon, definitely, I don't think. I'll briefly mention also these rares to uncommons, because that's also a big change to be put to an uncommon. So there was a cycle of lands here. If you read them, if you played Strixhaven, you'll be familiar with the Snarls. These are the original Snarls for the ally colors. Anguish Unmaking, Deathcap Cultivator. Like, these cards seem like are pretty okay for uncommon. Stromkirk Occultist was another interesting one they put down to uncommon. Scourge Wolf, Delirium in red is just not going to happen that much, so this card wasn't anything special. Gaia Reach Bandit's an interesting one. So this is one where if you transform it, it basically transforms all of your wolves automatically when they come in. Brain in a Jar, Lupine Prototype, and Soul Separator I would just ignore most of the time. Soul Separator, if the game goes really grindy, it can do something, but it's a lot to get started. It's 8 mana for the first activation total, 3 plus the 5. Yeah, so some interesting decisions here. Like, a lot of cards got shifted, so...
do you think they're trying to send us a signal with the lands being downgraded, especially since we just had Strixhaven, right? Strixhaven's still going on as a flashback draft, and they're at rare in that set, right?
Yeah, it's weird because this is not a splashing format. Like, one of the things you asked me to look at was cards I would be wanting to splash, and honestly, there's not that much at common or uncommon. That I would really be excited to splash. There's like, some of the removal, like, Bound by Moonsilver, Faith Unbroken. Like, if I was really hard up, you could splash Certain Death. If you're playing like a blue-green deck that doesn't have hard removal and you have access to black mana, throw in Certain Death. There is another cycle at uncommon of tap lands. They're the enemy colors. They're just tap lands that tap for either one. So white, black, white, red, etc. So there is a full cycle of dual lands at uncommon, just they're slightly different. Other cards I said were splashable. There's just not that much. There's like Incendiary Flow, right? The red 3 deal 3 to anything. Anguished Unmaking would be a card I would want to splash if I was either one of these colors. But it's just like they gave us the dual lands at uncommon, but there's not that much to splash here. What's next here?
But in the rare and mythic, there's probably like worth a splash. Like Sorin, for example, if you're black-red, you're going to be seeing a crap ton of cards anyway. It's probably right to at least see if you can splash them in the worst case scenario, you just discard them.
Yeah, a lot of the gold rares, I mean, we're like, we're more focused on commons and uncommons for our purpose, but like, yeah, Tameo, Altered Ego, just looking at these gold rares like Nahiri, Sorin, even Ulrich to an extent, Sigarda, Arlen, not as much Olivia or Gisa. They're more focused on their sort of what their decks are doing. But yeah, like just at a glance, like these are cards you'd be, trying to splash or okay with splashing.
And it feels like there's at least enough fixing in the format to where, like, if you want to get a splash in there, you probably can get a couple cards in week 1, 2, maybe 3 still.
Yeah, well, we know with our league, you often have to splash in week 1 a lot of the time. Like you often don't even have a choice. As we progress in the league, and this is going to be a shorter league, but I'm usually trying to get to 2 colors as fast as I can, though I know not everybody is on that plan. There's people who perform consistently and make top 8 very often, running multicolor decks like all the way till the end. So they do have the pieces here. Like I said, there's the Wildfield Scarecrow as a nice fixer also. Really, really strong. Terrarion is also kind of a cool little card that can fix you. It replaces itself. It's kind of like it's like a big chromatic star kind of. It's like a double chromatic star, but it comes into play tapped.
Are there any other common or uncommon artifacts? Because when I looked at the list, and it might just be my bias being, just knowing the last year's worth of cards, but I gave most of the artifacts D's and C minuses in my personal grading.
I'll shout out a couple of them aside from Wildfield Scarecrow. Yeah. The Harvest Hand is pretty nice. Like it's just
that's not too slow.
3 mana 2/2, and it becomes a nice little weapon here. Like that's fine. Okay. You get value. The one I will shout out, which looks unassuming, is this True Faith Censor. In the humans deck, this card was just a house. The Vigilance and then an extra +1/+0. It just had the right numbers, and the humans weren't that big, so giving them a +2/+1 and Vigilance is really, really strong. So if you have humans, even if you don't have humans, like it's still a pretty good rate. Vigilance is really underrated. I think it continues to be underrated as a keyword. So this card doesn't look like it's doing much, but this card was an overperformer every time, and you wanted it in most decks, and in the humans deck, this was you would play 2 or sometimes 3, honestly, in your deck, which was like where all your creatures were going to be humans. So shout out to True Faith Sensor. But yeah, the rest of the artifacts are not nothing special here.
Speaking of equipment, what do you think of Neglected Heirloom and like the dedicated werewolf decks?
I don't. This card wasn't that good. I don't think.
No.
I mean,
I was mainly curious. I figured one drop, it's pretty like cheap and inefficient, like week 1, 2. I might run it on the backside first.
The backside is completely insane, obviously.
Yeah, like that's clearly what we want.
Yeah, I think, but it's like there's way less cards that transform naturally. Most of them just require some sort of mana, which makes this a lot worse. So yeah.
What about Soul Separator there?
Yeah, like I said, this is kind of it's like if you read it, it's like kind of like a cool thing, right? It's like late in the game, you're getting 2 bodies, you're getting an ETB, you're getting a little flying creature. But the thing is, like, you have to read it. It's 8 mana for the first one, and it's going to be 13 mana to get 2 activations total. Like, it's a lot. This wasn't really played. Maybe at uncommon, it'll entice people to be like, oh, it's uncommon. That means it must be something that they want us to play with, right? But I would usually stay away. I mean, in League, we get sort of these wonky cards get better, but this is still pushing it, I would say.
Speaking of pushed, what do we think of the Fragment? The Cryptolith? The fixer that pings both players for 1?
Very interesting card. And just Battlefield tapped, so it has that going on against it. This card was a card that could impact games. It's fixing the back. Like, this is a really cool design. Like, really hard to block, obviously. Yeah, but if you're getting beat down, if you're on the back foot, like, you just almost can't activate this. Kind of like the Mere Convert from the recent set, right? Like, if your opponent is hitting you, you can't activate your Mere Convert for mana. Like, it's just not going to work. So, yeah, this card is not that exciting. It was not. It's like it's in the D range usually, I would say. I mean, look, week 1 when you're trying to fix mana, you're going to throw it in your deck, but later on, you probably don't want it as much. All
right. Is there, speaking of like week 1, just thought maybe some week 1 strategies for if we lose a game. We have a new mechanic, right, for the league where we get to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
Should we have any strategies going into the punishment packs?
Well, I mean, you get to do like a blind reroll, right? Like, if you don't like your pack, you get another pack, but you have to take that one. I mean, it's just what you want to do with your deck. Like, in the early weeks, like I kind of like, if I don't have bomb rares in the early weeks, I'd always look to play, sort of big sort of green creatures is often good. Like, just have bigger creatures in your opponent. But honestly, like, we see the creatures are not that big. Like, looking through the green here, like, we have a 4/5 for 5. Like, the green creatures are common or uncommon are not that big. I will shout out Pack Guardian as just like one of the premium uncommons here going through the list, and Noose Constrictor. Though the discarding a card is kind of weird in green because there's no madness. But if you're green red or green black, Noose Constrictor is insane. Yeah, like, you see the creatures are not very large in green, so like, you're not. there's no like big clunky 6 or 7 drop here. Even there's just we got a 5 mana 4/5, and that's as big as it gets, a common or uncommon. So pretty wild that we just don't have these large beefy creatures. So maybe the games will play out a bit different as a result in the early weeks, because I know I often look at green and be like, oh, can I just play bigger stuff than my opponent? But yeah, I think they decided to reserve all the big creatures for the Eldrazi slots here, right? These big gigantic things, but only a few of them are common or uncommon. Like, we got a 5/7, a 6/5, and a 6/4.
Yeah, I'm curious about this mechanic now. I'm thinking in my head, and the whole investigate idea, right? In my mind, it's either I'm going to try and build upon my pool if it's already pretty strong, it just needs a little bit of help, or I'm just looking for the best pack. Which, of course, you probably want to play a couple draft games, or like poke your head in other stream matches to see like what cards are performing pretty well. That way, like, kind of what packs are kind of like duds and what packs might actually be good. So if you get a dud pack, I'd probably just instantly investigate. Anything's better than trash. and then go forward from there. And then
Yeah, like early on in League, unless you have like 4 on-color rares or like 5 of your rares are like within the same 2 colors, you're probably just looking for the pack with the most playables. Like you're going to be more flexible. So, it depends on the pool. If like if you're committed to 1 color or committed to 2 colors early on, just based on your rares, then your decisions will be a bit more straightforward. But otherwise, you should probably just be re-rolling pretty aggressively, I would say.
by all means. It's like this format, if you have 4 Wanderers, you might really want to try and stay on the white.
4 Wanderers? Is that a thing?
I think someone has maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But it's me like, if you have bombs like that, you definitely want to keep your colors.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, we're not talking about re-rolling the whole pool. It's just like, we get a fresh pack. But yeah, I think that will be basically based on the starting pools and how the rares shake out, honestly.
Right.
Oh, I did want to mention, it wasn't in your grid, but I did want to call out weirdest card in the set. I just want to take a moment to look at the Permeating Mass, because this card is hilariously strange. So, 1 mana, 1/3, whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, that creature becomes Permeating Mass. So...
That's an interesting way to get rid of a bomb.
So if your opponent attacks you with a 5/5, you could block it with this, and your Permeating Mass dies, but now they have a 1/3 Permeating Mass.
Right.
And
the permeating mass must permeate.
Yeah, I'll give it a shout out for weirdest card in the set. It's playable. You can put this in your deck. It's it might not always do what you want it to do, but it certainly will have an impact on the board. It will not do nothing.
It's an interesting death touch effect.
It's actually, a couple of us at the store came up with a nickname. It's not death touch. It's derp touch.
Oh.
It just turns everything into a derpy 1/3 creature. But yeah, derp touch. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, I
saw that someone online posted that they had just been collecting permeating masses.
Oh, great.
And they'd had somewhere upwards of like 400 or 500 of them.
Oh, delightful. All right, so John, I think you had asked me about like you phrased it as the cards you are happy to see people cast, which means just sort of like below average commons and uncommons, right?
Right.
So like cards that might look like they're good, but kind of are cards you would want to avoid. So I can mention a couple of those. First off would be this Angel here. This card seems completely lost in the set. Like white, it does not do self-mill, and white does not do discard. So Delirium, and it becomes basically this old card Fallen Angel, which is a black creature that has the ability sack to give it +2/+1. But like this card is not good on its front, and it's like this ability is like nothing special. It's like you could sack to make it a 5/4. Like not sure why they reprinted this set. So that's a card I would not be looking to try and build around. Another one that looks promising is this Daring Sleuth. Whenever you sack a clue, transform it into a 3/2 prowess that investigates when it deals combat damage, but it doesn't have evasion. So it's just like upgrading from a 2/1 to a 3/2 is not really that great. So it's a lot of hoops to jump through to get your creature from like below average to, maybe average. So that's another one.
And does this also suffer from not having a clear identity in that it's prowess? So it says put me in the red-blue deck, but it's also a clue, so it says put me in the blue-green deck.
Yeah, it's weird because like half of the cards, like half of the set, like the Eldritch Moon did not have Investigate at all. Like the whole theme was that in the first set they were investigating strange things, and then we find out it's the Eldrazi. So there's literally no Investigate in Eldritch Moon. So this is a card that did not have a home. Another card I'll call out here is Fogwalker. So it has Skulk, which was sort of this. It was an experiment. It was a design experiment. Wizards of the Coast was looking for an evergreen keyword that was shared by just blue and black. So they actually realized that blue and black did not have a keyword that only their creatures had. So like, white and red gets first strike. Red and green get trample. Black and green get death touch. Black and white get lifelink. Black and red get, I guess, haste or something. But like there was nothing blue and black exclusively shared. So they just said, we'll try this Skulk, and it was terrible and nobody cared. And but also this creature does not do what it looks like it says it does. because it's missing the 3 magic words tap target creature.
Mhm.
It just keeps it. If something's already tapped, it keeps it tapped for a turn. And it's a 2-mana 1/3 that can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So it's like if they have a 1/2 or a 1/3, they could block it. Otherwise, they just take one and not like the ETB doesn't really do much. So a really strange card that just this is not good on any of its aspects here. A couple others I'll mention here. Just a card I think most of us can figure out is bad is Alms of the Vein. So
Whoa!
I know in the draft queues I will lose to this many times and I will never put it in my deck, and neither of those facts will ever change my evaluation of this card.
Even if you're in a dedicated Madness deck?
It's just, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're like discarding to draw a card and it's like you get
Exactly.
your card back, but this is not worth a card. And honestly, to me, it's not worth a deck slot.
It looks like it's a lightning bolt that gains you 3 life, Richard.
The possibility of getting a card back is just...
The card to me is phenomenal. As a Filthy Dredge player, it's pretty much creeping chill at home.
Get out. Get out. If my opponent plays this, I will probably be happy until they kill me with it. But
I promise you, if I'm in Madness, I will be playing every copy my deck can get its hands on.
Okay, well, hopefully you don't get many, because then you don't get to put it in your deck. The other card I'll call out, which kind of looks cool, but just never really did exactly what you wanted to, is Fury Blade Vampire. So 2-mana 1/2 trample. At the beginning of your combat, you can discard a card. If you do, it becomes +3/+0. It doesn't really help it attack past much, right? It's still trading with a 2/2. And you have to, and it asks for a very specific time for you to discard the card. So yes, it's a free outlet to get a Madness spell, but it has to be exactly at the beginning of combat. So this card looks like it's promising something, but it kind of under-delivered. Because the bonus of it becoming a 4/2 trample isn't really that special, right? It's just like it still trades with a 2/2 or a 2/1. You get some trample damage, but there's another card that I think people will look like, oh yeah, this is like a linchpin part of that deck, and there's a lot better ways to discard a card than this one.
Why didn't you put her in your hat cube?
I think it must. I'm sure it was. All right. So what's the next? What's our next topic here? We're
Man, look at Gold Knight Castigator. That guy has a hat.
In our conversations earlier today, I had asked about combat tricks.
Oh yeah, yep.
Because in the past, when I've listened to limited resources, episodes from a few years ago, they always poo-poo combat tricks and auras, but they've walked that back lately. And other content creators tend to promote combat tricks. But in this set, combat tricks are still bad, right? Except for that one red Uncaged Fury.
I think it depends on your matchup.
Yeah,
red black, I probably want little combat tricks. I'll get blown out.
So,
against like the other.
Yeah. So these cards are actually good. These cards are actually good because they offer a lot of different options.
There's only the 3.
Yeah, the borrowed cards. They offer a lot of options. Like the Borrowed Grace, really strong. Borrowed Hostility, like, you could win combat for 1 or dominate combat for 4, basically. And Borrowed Malevolence could just pick something off. Like it's a -1/-1 that also could pump your guy. So this is like kind of like, if you remember, it's a way worse version. Well, not way worse, but like similar to Subtle Strike if you played with that card. That one give a counter, but rather than just.
What is the card that is that's 1 mana +1/-1? It's like
that card was very good. Yeah. So a couple other tricks I'll mention. I did mention it before, but Uncaged Fury in combination with any other pump spell, particularly the one that gives trample. So, a combo to look for is, like I said, Rush of Adrenaline, +2/+1, and Uncaged Fury will happen less than it did in Shadows because Uncaged Fury is up to a uncommon. Aim High is just a really, really nice one because it untaps and it gives reach. So it ambushes just about anything. So, this can a lot of the time act as a removal. Another one you asked about was Confront the Unknown, which it's kind of just a +1/+1 draw card, which is kind of good. So
Okay.
This card was
is
pretty
it
good.
just a matter of them curating for contemporary audiences that we're getting decent combat tricks and a decent volume of them, or is it just this was an outlier?
I think they opted to include a lot of them. Like Grotesque Mutation was a card. I mean, also like horrifying art, like dear lord. But yeah, like often we're getting often the ones we get now with Lifelink is like it gets a +1 counter or it gets indestructible till end of turn.
Brothers War 1 more mana. This drew you a card.
This is just +3/+1. I mean, it's fine, but you're often your creature's often not going to survive. Like the +1 toughness, it'll trade up and give you a life bump, but you're usually going to lose your creature with this one. And the other one I wanted to mention, I mean, not a pump spell, but this was another card. It took a while for people to figure out this card was good. Chase of Scrutiny. So think of, I mean, we're drafting Strixhaven now. It's obviously not as good, as Arcane Subtraction, but it's closer to that than it is to like the bad versions of this card we've seen before. -4/-0, you usually get to eat their creature, and you get a card back. So,
are there any artifact things to do with the investigate tokens beyond cracking them?
There's a couple cards. There's a couple cards that care about it. I know, like at common or uncommon, there's not that much to do with the clues I found. There's a couple things that pay you off. There's like this Briarbridge Patrol, which they actually brought down from uncommon. So whenever it interacts with creatures in combat, you get a clue token. If you sack 3 clues, you get to put a creature card from your. Like I've never saw this happen in my life.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know why this doesn't feel like common. It feels like
I never saw that happen in my life. There's like Graph Mole. Like also this like if your deck wanted a 3-mana 2/4, you put it in. This text was kind of just like irrelevant. So if you want a Spined Karok in your deck, for those who play Strixhaven, play Graph Mole. I don't know why this is an uncommon, actually. I mean, 3 life is a lot, but you're not like, especially for the fact that none of the Eldritch Moon cards make clues, like you're not pumping out. Like, you're not going to be sitting there with 4 or 5 clues on the battlefield. You're either going to have 1 or 2 and you're keeping them around for something, or you're just going to draw cards with them and use them.
There's not like an investigate deck. There's just like a few investigate cards.
Yeah, I mean, Ongoing Investigation is kind of the card you would want to have, which is
what does that do?
Yeah, this one is when 1 or more of your creatures hit, you get to investigate, and then late in the game you just get life
That's kind of cute.
and cards for a really cheap cost, 1 and a green to exile creature cards in your graveyard. There was one sort of the big trademark rare card, which was Tamio's Journal, but it's a rare. So you get an investigate token every turn, and then you can use them to tutor rather than draw a card. So this one was
it's worth playing Open-Walled Mysteries if you have like a lot of investigation going on.
Yeah, Open-Walled Mysteries. Open-Walled Mysteries is not an investigate card to me. It's just a card that stands on its own. Like we've had this. I think it was in Jumpstart, one of the Jumpstart sets. Like this card just stands on its own. Like I know it says an investigate. It's like to me this card is more like green white. You're trading off creatures. And it fuels itself. To me, this doesn't say like pairs well with investigate cards. It says it pairs well with like creatures trading off. So
it's fair. You can slash in anything and it's gonna do the thing.
Yeah, this card's just good on its own. It fuels itself and it rewards itself. So like you don't need to do anything. Like, you play Magic naturally, your non-token creatures die. They either get removed or you sacrifice them or they die in combat. So yeah, not an investigate card for my money, but still like excellent card. Yeah, and also like on the other side of the blue-green, there was the Emerge deck, and they in Eldritch Moon they seeded us a bunch of creatures that you benefited when they died. There was like a 2-drop creature that you could tutor a land, tutor a basic land into play tap when it dies, which is not in the set. There was a 4-mana in blue. There was a 4-mana O2 that made a 3/2 token when it came in. So like premium thing you want to sacrifice for your Emerge creatures. The only one I really saw here was the Exultant Cultist, which draws a card when it dies. And then there's the Byway Courier, which we looked at before, which is the green one that investigates when it dies. So the Emerge deck is way less well set up than it was in Eldritch Moon, just as like the Investigate deck is, because they're just 2 different decks and they just sort of mash the cards together. I think it would have almost been better if they just focused on one of them and almost completely left out the other as like a focus, because in this way, blue-green doesn't really have a direction. It just has cards that do okay things. What else we got?
Hey, what does Skulk do?
Yeah, so Skulk, yeah, so I did mention this before while talking about how bad this card is. Like I said before, it was like a failed attempt at a blue-black evergreen keyword, because they wanted like a key. There's currently no keyword that only blue and black has access to, evergreen. So they tried to do it, but this card was just not impactful. It was all like
So a 1/3 would be. I mean, it can't be blocked. The only way to trade with it is to block it with 3 1/1s.
I suppose, yes, or just block it
Or
with a
3
1/3.
1/Xs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. You can just bounce.
The Skulk creatures were not very large. I mean, there was this rare, but like there was actually kind of a good Skulk card that they did not put in the set. It was a black common. It was a 3-mana 1/3 lifelink with Skulk. Really annoying. They actually didn't put it in the set. That was probably one of the better ones. And there was also a blue homunculus. It was a 2-mana 2/1 with Skulk that they also didn't put in. So like those cards were more annoying than I think the Fogwalker ever was. So they just really, I think they just put it in to show its face here. But Skulk, not good, was never brought back. Nobody cared, unfortunately. It just
What
wasn't strong
replaced
enough.
it? What mechanic replaced it? What's the blue black?
They still haven't come up with
but
one.
that's not really a combat keyword.
Well,
So they don't-
Flash. All creatures seem to get Flash though.
Yeah,
Like
white
all colors, like
creature.
green gets Flash all the time. So, I mean,
White
focused
getting
it-
Flash is a newer thing than blue or black having Flash.
No, I mean, there's a white Flash card in this set, so which was quite good. They actually brought this. They actually brought this down from Uncommon.
That card seems good.
Yeah, they brought this down from Uncommon. It's
Just a Flash other creatures. Okay, so I mean, a Flash 2/3 flyer eats a lot of flyers.
Yeah, this one's not a flyer.
Looks like it's flying. Oh, the fucking non-flying spirits. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Let's just watch it while we're still recording here.
My least. Oh man. Least favorite creature type ability combination. The spirits that don't fly.
Is there any other topics we want to touch on before we wrap up the recording here?
I think I've asked. We've worked through a lot of questions I said.
Yeah, I think I could sort of scan through the list and maybe just mention a couple cards that like were maybe stronger than they look. Just like very quickly, like Blessed Alliance, one of the other Escalate cards. Like this card does just about everything. Like you can ambush stuff, they sack stuff, you gain life. Like this is a control player's dream here, and also just good in any white deck. Yeah, like I said, I'm just gonna scan through some of these cards and mention ones that were maybe like performed above or below expectations. Lunarch Mantle was another card that it took a while for people to realize that this card is just good. By the end of the game, you have a lot of extraneous permanents, including lands. So like when you're on 7 or 8 lands, you just sack a land, and you could sack the land that you use to activate this ability to get it flying. So kind of like a card that doesn't look great, but this card can win games pretty.
Can you sack the mantle itself?
Yeah. It will lose the +2/+2, but it will gain the flying.
Right. Fits the game.
Yeah, just looking through for other cards that sort of overperform. Oh, Town Gossip Monger. They weren't really into printing good 1-drops, but this one actually was pretty nice. Like this 2/3 is pretty beefy that can pump itself. For your 1/1. Let's see. So that card's Drownyard Explorers again looks bad, looks clunky, but is good. I mean, obviously you take a Thraben Inspector over this any day, but still okay. Geist of the Archives, they brought down from Uncommon. This card was kind of annoying, but also, again, doesn't have flying, despite the fact that it's clearly floating. But we won't get into that. Just scanning, just cards I haven't mentioned. Pour Over the Pages, really, really strong Uncommon here. Just basically good in every deck. The format was not too slow for it. So, Take Inventory was like, you need to get 3 or 4 of these to make it worth your while. So, not something I would be that excited about. Let's see. Call the Bloodline. This is one of the other like linchpin cards for the Madness as a discard outlet. You can only activate it once a turn, but you get 1/1 lifelink tokens even. So, you get to cast your Madness spell, do whatever that card does, and you get a 1/1. So, pretty nice. Crow of Dark Tidings was for the self-mill deck. Really reliable. Scanning here, like Haunted Dead was another standout. It looks clunky, but this is really strong. It brings a 1/1 flying, and you could discard 2 cards to bring it back. Like this card was quite good as well. Discard 2 cards sounds like a big cost, but for 2 mana, you discard a Madness and maybe a land in the late game, and you get a spell, and you get this, and you get a 1/1. So pretty good. Just looking through here. If you ever want to try something fun, you can do Triskaidekaphobia. It's one of the few cards that can make a game end in a draw. So I'll just see what else is here real quick. Like I said, Fiery Temper. There's a reason why they put it up to uncommon. Mad Prophet, again, one of the other really good ways to get Madness, because it actually gets you your card back. So you get to cast your Madness spell and draw a card. So really, really good one. The Pyrehound was a good card for the red-white deck. Or red-blue deck, sorry, the spells deck. Can get pretty big. Village Messenger, again, looks unassuming, but it does a lot. It's like if you have it on turn 1, your opponent's probably not gonna have a 1-drop. You have a 2/2 menace then for the rest of the game. Pretty decent. Anything else I want to mention? Oh yeah, Duskwatch Recruiter probably gets one of the mythic uncommon slots. Like this card is completely insane. So if it looks like it's good, it's better than however it looks. So it's incredible. Howlpack Resurgence was an insane card in Shadows draft. I don't know if it's gonna translate here, since half of the werewolves don't care about not casting stuff on your turn, because they flip over using mana. I think that's probably about it for other cards I wanted to call out here. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Excellent.
Yeah, we got a couple of rare lands, but Gyreach Sanitarium, not really great. Both players loot. Westvale Abbey and Hanweir Battlements, both pretty good. I mean, Hanweir Battlements is a meld card, but it gives haste, so it's okay. Westvale Abbey is a cool card. Make a big demon. Yeah, so cool set. Looking forward to a bit of a slowed down, less power format. Right, we're going in a time machine back to 2016 here, so it'll be fun. Does anybody have any closing remarks before we wrap this up?
Outside of red, black, or bust, that's it for me.
All right, you heard it here first. He's playing red, black, forcing it. All right. Well, thanks to.
Thank you for sharing all your knowledge.
Well, yeah. So thanks to John for organizing this, Rafael, and a couple others who joined us at the end there. So hope this is helpful, and thanks for watching.